Hey you guys, it's your girl T, and I know everyone has been asking me for a recap of part 2 of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Everything was so crazy last week, but I wanted to get on camera as soon as possible to give you guys a recap. So this episode starts, it's after the whole fight situation. Apollo and Fedor has walked off. You know, Portia's so disgusted by the whole situation. She's like, this is some hood shit. I think all y'all is possessed. Everybody here is demonic. Portia and her sister do the grown-up thing, and they decide to leave the party altogether. So I had a lot of respect for Portia in this episode. It seemed like Portia was using a lot of common sense. She was acting more adult. She wasn't acting ditzy. She done went from not knowing what the Underground Railroad was to being the person in this entire situation with the most common sense. Now we're back in the room and everybody's asking Christopher Williams, you know, what is going on? You know, what happened? You know, how did everything go so awry? And Christopher is saying, you know, I love my wife. I'm not going to let anybody disrespect my wife. You know, it seems like Kenya's always talking bad about my wife and trying to start mess. And then Kandi pipes up and she's like, you know what, I get it. I understand that. But let's not forget, you and your wife were also talking about, you know, my fiance, Todd. So Christopher's like, you know, well, what's going on? And then Natalie walks up and Kandi's like, you know, you had a lot to say about Todd at the winery too, you know, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on because you were calling him an opportunist. So then Natalie starts trying to defend herself and she's saying, well, no, I didn't say that. She starts backpedaling, of course. And she's saying that, you know, she was saying that he was coming up. She didn't call him an opportunist. So then all of a sudden, Cynthia decides to get her ass involved. So Cynthia's like, you know what, Kandi, it's not that serious. And she starts, you know, getting up in Kandi's face and wagging her finger and everything else and going off on Kandi. So now Kandi's getting agitated like, look, I'm not, you know, your child. Get your hand out my face. It's not that serious. You can talk without, you know, jumping in my face like that. And then Peter gets up and he starts getting involved. So now Peter's trying to yell. And then so Todd gets involved and he's going back and forth with Peter. Like, you know, this ain't cool. Everybody keeps talking about me being an opportunist. I love this girl. The whole situation is crazy. Then all of a sudden, angry face Mal gets up. Now, y'all keep asking, why am I so mean to Cynthia's sister? Why don't I like Mal? Why do I call her angry face? Mal's actions have not been saying what I've been saying all season long in these recaps. This bitch is angry. She's not getting dick 5 times a day like she claimed to Cynthia. And it just seems like she's just ready for drama to pop off. You can tell that when shit went down, when her and Cynthia were kids, Mal was always the one to jump in. First of all, Cynthia's a grown woman. And my thing is, if we can all go back to the winery situation, because it seems like all this drama came from the whole winery trip, okay? Mal was there, Lexi was there, Cynthia was there, everybody was there. So everybody saw how everything started, okay? The reason why everything jumped off, it was because of Natalie. Natalie and Cynthia started everything. Natalie started talking to Kandi about how her friend used to date Todd. After Natalie was confronting Kandi about her girl dating Todd, you know, Kenya, in a strange kind of way, had Kandi's back. Kenya was like, well, you know, that's not cool that you're sitting here trying to confront her about her man because I heard that your man is telling folks that you guys are not married, that you guys are just common law. So in my opinion, I felt like Kenya was saying that to Natalie at the winery to say those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Don't worry about what Todd did with your girlfriend when your own man is out here not claiming you. So if you guys remember back to the winery, that's how everything started. Natalie was running her mouth to Peter and Cynthia, and Christopher Williams was too about Todd. And Kenya confronted her, and then Cynthia chimed in. So all this stuff while Christopher Williams was trying to go off on Kenya and blame Kenya and trying to confront Kenya because he was hyped up by NeNe, when it comes down to it, Natalie and Cynthia were the cause of all this drama. Mal was there. She saw everything play out, but yet and still you want to jump up and get up in Kandi's face and push Kandi and Todd? You know, I thought that was disgusting that Mal thought it was okay for her to push her. And then for Cynthia to act like she didn't know that her sister put her hands on Kandi. Cynthia, you knew. You knew. Poor Todd went flying damn near across the room. That wasn't cool at all. You know, Mal needs to sit her ass down somewhere and let her sister fight her own damn battles. And to me, Peter's just as messy. He's always involved in some type of gossip with women. You're a grown man, Peter. Act like it and stay out of all these females' business. So after Kandi and Todd got pushed, Kandi went off. She was threatening to kill everybody. She got real hood and ratchet. She was real upset. You could tell she was very hurt by the situation because she started crying. And you know, a lot of times when you're angry and you're shocked by how something plays out, a lot of times you will start crying because you're that upset. I felt really bad for Kandi because Kandi didn't start any of that mess. She was basically telling Natalie, you know, while y'all want to sit up here and confront Kenya, you know what I mean, you were also talking about Todd. You know, I find it funny that nobody's blaming Natalie for this. Nobody's blaming Christopher Williams for this. Somehow this is all Kenya's fault. I mean, the whole shit to me is just comical. So then Candy goes into the bathroom, and Phaedra's trying to calm her down, and Phaedra's talking to her. You can tell Phaedra and Candy have a really good rapport with each other. You know, NeNe's trying to be fake and act like she's trying to comfort her, but NeNe don't care, because in the confessional, NeNe's talking shit, talking about, you can't talk about Candy's man. Don't talk about Candy's man or her food, because Candy gonna go off. It's like NeNe is just so messy for no damn reason. So after that, Candy comes out the bathroom. She's telling Todd, yo, it's time to go. I'm done with this situation. And Todd is saying, you know, Candy, just chill out. Me and Peter are trying to work everything out. Just calm down. To me, Todd is such an upstanding guy. He really takes up for Candy. He defends their relationship. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Todd. You know, regardless of how they got together, it seems like they are really in love with each other, and that Todd really wants this to work. You know, he's really going to take up for her. He don't want nobody defending this girl. So I respected Todd in this situation. So after everything was said and done, everybody went home. And it was just a bunch of gossip all over ATL. Candy's telling her side of the story to her friend. The whole situation is just getting crazy. She's telling, you know, what she remembers. They're talking about Kenya, Brandon, the whole situation. And then in the next scene, you have NeNe going over to Cynthia's house. So NeNe and Greg go over to Cynthia's house, and they're talking about it. And I was just so shocked by how messy Cynthia was acting. She was mocking Candy, talking about Candy's a thug. She's ghetto. She was acting ratchet. I can't believe she threatened to kill me. You know, just trying to act all innocent. That's why I say I hate people who like to throw rocks and then hide their hands. You want to call Candy a thug? The only thug I saw in that fucking scene was your angry face sister Mal. She herself is a thug. She was going off on Candy. She was cussing Candy out. She was saying, I'll fuck Candy up. You know what I mean? So why aren't you calling your sister a thug? Why is Candy the only one getting the thug reference? Your sister is a hood rat. I don't give a damn who she's married to or how much money she has. You can take a hood rat out the hood, but you can't take the hood rat out the damn hood rat. And I think Cynthia needs to stop acting like she's so above Candy and everybody else, and stop trying to act like she's so innocent. You know, to the point now where I feel like Cynthia and Peter, they deserve each other. They're both some messy ass liars. I couldn't believe when Candy and them confronted them about what they were saying, they totally lied. They claimed they were cool with Todd. They never looked at Todd no different. They never looked at Todd as an opportunist. But if you guys go back to that original clip, they were talking shit. They were gossiping. They were feeding into everything that Christopher Williams and Natalie were saying about Todd and Candy. So I don't respect them for backtracking and then trying to act like they didn't have nothing to do with that gossip being spread. You know, I was just really, really shocked at Cynthia's behavior and how messy she was acting, how disrespectful she was acting, talking about Candy. And of course, I wasn't surprised by nothing NeNe was saying. But what did piss me off about NeNe was when she had the nerve to call Brandon the queen, talking about she needs to sit down somewhere and she shouldn't have got involved. And then when Kenya was on Late Night with Andy Cohen, they brought it up about, you know, NeNe calling Brandon the queen. And what I found funny, like I said on Twitter, it's funny that, you know, NeNe has made her whole career acting like a drag queen herself, you know, bigging up the gays and talking about gays and using all the words that the gays use. But then you want to sit here and call this man a queen. And then when folks confronted NeNe claims she can say queen and it's not a big deal because they have a show on Bravo called Fashion Queens. And this is what I said on Facebook a while ago while all these effeminate guys were mad at me. Bravo needs to stop making it seem like all gay men behave like Miss Lawrence and Mr. J, okay? There's a lot of gay men out here who are not walking around in heels, who are not walking around in lipstick, who are not super effeminate. They just like men, but they still act like guys. They still walk around with Timberlands and sneakers and everything else. So for her to use that as an excuse that it's okay for her to call Brandon a queen because there's a show called Fashion Queens shows you how ignorant NeNe is. Every gay man is not a queen, honey, okay? Every gay man is not walking around here in 6-inch heels like Derek J. There's a lot of gay men out here who act like what they are, men, okay? Every gay man doesn't want to be a woman. Every gay man doesn't want to turn into a woman or dress like a woman. So I feel like for her to call that man a queen was disrespectful. Brandon is not a queen. Brandon is a very masculine gay guy. You know what I mean? He may break out and twerk every now and then, but I blame Kenya for that twerking shit more than I blame Brandon. Brandon's just trying to kick it with his homegirl. And regardless of what NeNe wants to call Brandon, what I will call Brandon is this: he's a good damn friend. And Kenya better cherish him because there's not a lot of good friends like that. There's not a lot of good friends like that, gay or straight, male or female, who will take a black eye for you, a broken rib, and whatever else happened to that man. He stood up for his friend. So NeNe can call Brandon a queen all she wants to. To me, Brandon is an outstanding person, point blank, period. Everything that Brandon did during that scene sticking up for his friend Kenya was anything but him acting like a queen. He was acting like a good friend, and for NeNe to call him a queen, I lost all respect for NeNe in that moment. So after all the gossiping and them being messy, we then go on to the next scene and we're at Kenya's house. So Kenya's over there, you know, she's looking real rough, no makeup on. She's real upset about what happened the night before. Brandon comes over in glasses. He takes off his glasses and it reminds me of that scene on Friday when Fred takes off his glasses and he has that black eye and Smokey and Craig are like, damn! That's how I felt when I seen Brandon. I'm like, what the hell? I felt so bad for him. He had a black eye. He said his ribs were cracked, and that is considered a felony. It was a felony assault what Apollo did to him. He had the police report. He was thinking about pressing charges, but like the good person Brandon is, Brandon said, you know what, if it was just Apollo and Phaedra, I would definitely press assault charges, but being that they have this baby and Apollo's an ex-felon, I don't want to take him away from his children. Brandon did the outstanding thing by not pressing charges on Apollo. So to me, once again, it showed how much of a man Brandon was in that situation. So Brandon is anything but a damn queen, NeNe. So in the next scene, Kandi decides to hold open auditions for her play. When I tell you everybody named Mama in Atlanta came out to audition, I was surprised I didn't see K. Michelle auditioning for a role. I mean, half these folks couldn't sing. I believe that these people just wanted to be on TV. That whole audition was a hot ass mess. Don Juan is negative as hell, but he had me cracking up when he told that dude, when that dude Jason came to audition and he was like, my name is Jason, I'm here for the role of Jason. And Don Juan was like, yes, he can play the role of Jason, the scary one, because the way he sounded was scary as hell. Don Juan had me cracking up in that damn moment, but you know his ass is still negative as hell for no damn reason. So in the next scene, we have Kandi. She decides to get all the girls together. She basically wants to apologize for how she behaved during the whole event. You know, it's funny that Kandi can take responsibility for her actions and say that she was wrong for the role that she played in it. Yet and still, all these other women refuse to take any personal responsibility. They would just rather blame Kenya. Even when Kandi and Cynthia were talking, Cynthia was acting like, you know, it was so beneath her to apologize and was trying to act like, you know, Kandi just attacked her for no reason, even though Cynthia is the one who involved herself in the conversation that Kandi was having with Natalie. So after Cynthia and Kandi go back and forth for a few moments, they finally decide to apologize and let it go. So then NeNe starts flipping out on Kenya, talking about she had no business charging Natalie. She had no business getting out her seat. And Kenya's like, no, you're not going to blame me for this, NeNe, because you had an attitude from jump. You were acting funny towards me and Brandon. And once again, NeNe calls Brandon a queen and says that she shouldn't even came and she shouldn't have brought Brandon with her and everything else, and that she better leave Brandon at home next time. And then she says that Kenya looks like she's wearing a diaper. You know, NeNe's just gotten real mean and real nasty this season. I really feel like NeNe feels some type of way about Kenya because she's scared that Kenya's coming for her spot. When you think about it, none of these other women will step to NeNe. You know, Kandi might throw a little bit of shots here and there, but it seems like everybody else is scared of NeNe. Everybody from Phaedra, and we know damn well Cynthia's scared of NeNe. And Portia, you know, she's just kind of ditzy. She's just kind of neutral with the whole situation. It seems like Kenya's the only one willing to step to NeNe. I mean, nobody blamed Apollo for anything. Nobody said that Apollo was in the wrong for beating up on Brandon. Even in that scene where Phaedra was talking to Apollo, it didn't even seem like husband and wife. It seemed like Phaedra was a mother talking to her teenage son. He took no personal responsibility. He didn't say anything about him being sorry. You know, he claimed he was trying to break up the fight. So you try and break up a fight by choking somebody and then continuously punching the shit out of them? You know, Apollo's full of shit. And then for Phaedra to sit there and excuse her husband's behavior says a lot about Phaedra. She's just as hood as anybody else, but she tries to play the Southern Belle routine. I was seriously over all these women by the end of the show. I mean, the whole situation made no sense. I respect Kandi for, you know, standing her ground, apologizing for the mistakes that she made. NeNe to not take any personal responsibility, for her to try and shift all the blame on Kenya just says a lot about NeNe. And then for Cynthia and everybody continuously kiss NeNe's ass just lets you know that they're all scared of NeNe at the end of the day. You know, the whole situation was just a mess. So at the end of the day, nothing really got resolved, but Portia once again was the voice of reason. Portia tells everybody that, you know what, we just all need to take personal responsibility for the role that we played in this whole fight, in the whole argument, everything that happened. And to me, Portia just ended up being the whole voice of wisdom. You know, that's the thing. People make mistakes. People get into it. People argue. But own up to the role that you played. And for NeNe to not own up to it made me lose a lot of respect for NeNe. So anyways, that was my recap for this episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. So go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know what you thought about this episode. What did you think about NeNe not taking any personal responsibility? And whose fault do you think it was? Do you think it was Kenya and Brandon's fault? Or do you think it was NeNe's fault for starting everything? So let me know your thoughts. All right. Deuces.